All right, good morning, everyone. I am Mavic Jun, and today I'll be going through Singapore's readiness for conflict. The question here being, are we ready? First, I'll be going through the table of contents. Number one will be Singapore's security threats. Number two, our approach to our security threats. Number three, I will try to explain why does Singapore have such an approach. And number four, I will assess the Singapore security landscape. Number one, our security threats. I've broken down our security threats into two portions. Number one will be traditional security threats or military threats, and number two will be non-traditional security threats, of which there are three. I'll be focusing on them later. Number one, we'll be talking about Malaysia and Indonesia as traditional security threats. Both countries have provoked us on numerous occasions, which include but are not limited to confrontasi, exercise Pukul Habis, and testing the readiness of our sea and air defenses on numerous occasions. Number two, which is non-traditional security threats, of which there are three in this presentation, will be resources such as water, B, cyber threats, and C, transnational terror threats, or T3 for short. Over here, from this map, you could see the number of security threats that we face. These are some of the threats that I have presented here for your understanding. As you can see, we often have airspace incursions, sea incursions, numerous bomb threats, and even the threat of full-scale war on certain occasions. Next, I'll be talking about Singapore's approach to our security threats and how has our government countered such threats. Our government has countered our security threats through a two-pronged approach, which is deterrence and diplomacy. For deterrence, Singapore invests heavily in defense to ensure that we are able to defend ourselves and prevent potential adversaries from threatening us. We do this through national service, where able-bodied men are conscripted into the military for a 2-year term in order to augment our armed forces. And secondly, a large portion of our budget is allocated to defense, which in 2023 stood at 17.98 billion Singapore dollars. Now, this budget goes into investments into technologically advanced assets such as F-35 fighter aircraft, Type 218SG submarines, advanced ground-based air defense systems in our island air defense, and other advanced technologies, which I will explain later on. And secondly, it goes to the formation of our digital and intelligence service to ensure that we are prepared for this new realm of warfare. As you can see, our island air defense system is advanced and networked to ensure that we are able to better take down aerial threats, robotic dogs and special drones for reconnaissance, formation of our new digital intelligence service to protect us against digital threats, and new technologies such as F-35 fighter aircraft to replace our more outdated aircraft and boost our defense capabilities. Secondly, will be through diplomacy, of which Singapore participates in international organizations and treaties, civilian organizations such as UN and ASEAN. Singapore was a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council from 2001 and 2, which highlights the interests of our small states. And we are also critical in the negotiations for the Convention of the Law of the Sea in 1982, and also the Paris Climate Accords. We are important. This is important for us to highlight our interests and our concerns in order to perhaps shape the impression of other neighbors to be more friendly towards us or more accommodating of our interests in order to ensure our security. Secondly, it will be done through military diplomacy, which is through military organizations such as the Five Power Defense Arrangements, Combined Task Force 151, which specializes in anti-piracy in the Gulf of Aden, and the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus, where regional military leaders come together and even include global powers such as US and China to discuss and address security concerns and perhaps formulate ideas on how we can better coordinate our efforts to fight them off. Secondly, we through bilateral exercises to boost our military understanding of each other and perhaps forge closer relations. This is done through exercises such as exercise cooperation with China, and exercise Bersama Lima with our 5-hour defense arrangements members as well. As you can see here, we have many meetings. We participate actively in the UN. We take over command of CTF 151 on occasions, and even share our experience with other militaries to show that perhaps we are not a threat and we are open to sharing. So number 3, the question of why does Singapore adopt such an approach? I'll be using IR theories to explain this point. So for deterrence, we can be using the realist lens, as we can never be sure of the intentions of other nations. We have to assume that the world is anarchical, and we must have the hard power to ensure our interests if all else fails. In the event of conflict, we have so much more to lose than to gain. As such, we will be abiding by the theory of defensive realism. Hence, following the theory of defensive realism, we must build up a credible and capable armed forces in order to maximize our power to the extent that they are defensive in nature. This is in order to internally balance our power and deter other nations from viewing us as prey. Having close security ties with our neighboring countries and global powers such as US and China allows us to have external balance of power against our potential adversaries, as they may fear the potential repercussions, hence ensuring our security. For diplomacy, we could be using the liberal lens to explain that. Singapore participates heavily in multilateralism through international organizations and agreements, such as the UN, ASEAN, and the ICJ, which is the International Court of Justice, in order to resolve conflicts and secure our interests. This example of this would be, for example, the Pedra Branca dispute with Malaysia, which was resolved by a ICJ ruling. We also advocate for a rules-based world order to give a framework where Singapore can work to reduce the likelihood of conflicts and increase our stability and security. Moreover, being a trade-reliant country, we depend heavily with good relations with other countries in order to thrive through partnerships. Trade is one of the core tenets of liberalism. If I could use a quote to describe our policy of defense, it would be to speak softly and carry a big stick by Theodore Roosevelt. Lastly, I'll be providing some assessments of Singapore's security landscape and what we can do better. For traditional security threats, I believe we are faring well, in the light of new improved technologies such as drones and manpower issues caused by our falling birth rate. The SAF has evolved to develop new capabilities to tackle new methods of kinetic warfare. Examples will be including drone swarms for reconnaissance, our air defense systems, which is integrated, HQ Sense and Strike for development and integration of network air and strike operations, which is essentially doing more with less. For non-traditional security threats, I believe we are doing well in the area of water. While we are still importing water, we have been slowly weaning ourselves off of imported water via our new desalination plants and reclaimed water, such as New Water. In fact, one of the new desalination plants opened in April of last year. For grey zone warfare and cyber threats, while we are rather late to the game, it is better to be late than never. The DIS's units safeguards the command, control, communications, and computer capabilities for MINDEF and SAF, and its intelligence capabilities allows for greater situational awareness and information to allow commanders to make quicker and better decisions, especially in a VUCA grey zone environment. For non-traditional security threats, such as transnational terror threats, we are fairly well prepared, as the SAF has tested our readiness on numerous occasions, and citizens are also well educated on what to do in the event of terrorist attack, hence ensuring their vigilance. In conclusion, in my opinion, Singapore is ready for conflict, but given the ever-changing security landscape, we must constantly evolve and adapt to ensure our security will not be jeopardized in future. And I'll conclude by asking this question: if it was in your hands, what would you do to ensure our security? Thank you.